Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, How to Reduce Setup and Changeover Times Through a SMED Event. We're going to give it about 20 seconds. We had a lot of people register, and we want to make sure we give everyone some time to log on. But there is a lot of content to get through, so give it about 10 seconds. See everybody kind of joining the room.
It feels like New Year's. Start the countdown.
No. All right, let's get started. Let's dive into SMED events. So today's host, I'm Abby Bauman. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Amper. And I will be leading this presentation for a couple minutes in the beginning, but the real star is Allison Heil, who's right here on the line. Do you mind introducing yourself, Allison?
Yeah, no, not at all. Thanks. So yeah, a little bit about me. I graduated from Bradley University with a degree in mechanical engineering. Started working as a manufacturing engineer actually in the hydraulics industry. I worked in industrial, automotive, and the medical field as well. Did a lot of lean training while I was in auto, and I actually just got my Six Sigma black belt through the ASQ.
Awesome. So yeah, Allison will be leading most of the presentation, but I'm here for moral support, really. No. Our agenda today will be broken into 3 parts. So we're going to start with the theory of SMED, kind of talk about what SMED is. I don't even know if some of you on the line might have no idea what that stands for. Then we're going to go through a 9-step process for conducting a SMED event at your factory. And then the third section will be, I know we have a lot of customers on the line, so Allison's actually going to walk through how you can leverage Amper to do your SMED event at your factory. So with that, I said there were 3 sections of the presentation, and at the end of each section, we're going to pause for a question section that Allison will be answering any questions that come through. And you should have gotten an email from me yesterday saying that you will be entered to win an Amazon gift card for every question that you ask. And there are 3 gift cards available. So you have 3 chances to win. And for every question you ask, you actually get entered. So you can be, if you ask 10 questions, you'll get entered 10 times. And you can win all 3 times. So you could win $60. So pretty exciting. So with that, let's get started. Oh, and I do want to say you enter your questions into the Q&A section, and Joel will be monitoring that. You guys can see Joel here. He's our silent guy, but he will be monitoring the questions and putting your names in the raffle. So let's get started. Why reduce changeover times? There are a couple of reasons here. The first one is our competitive market. We're living in a global economy, and to remain successful, manufacturers like you have to figure out ways to run more lean, reduce waste, and eliminate downtime. So reducing changeover times means eliminating downtime. Secondly, your customers might be asking for smaller batches right now. They may not be ordering as much all at once, especially given these really uncertain times with the economy and COVID. So smaller batches means more changeover. And then last thing, among Amper customers who use our downtime labeling in our system, setup and changeover is one of the leading causes of their downtime. So the great thing with changeover, though, is that even a few tweaks can result in some major benefits. Mm-hmm. So fact, your machines only make money for you when they're making parts. So here at Amper, we love this saying, we say it all the time. If you're not making chips, you're not making money. So that's why reducing your equipment downtime is key to improving your OEE, and therefore it's important to reduce your changeover. So quick history of SMED, we're taking it back to 9th grade history class, basically. SMED was first articulated by Shigeo Shingo. I apologize if I mispronounced that. But he was a Japanese industrial engineer who was an expert on the Toyota production line, which was essentially a precursor for the lean manufacturing philosophy, which is why SMED kind of falls under this. And SMED literally means single minute exchange of die. So, but what that basically means is you're trying to strip changeover time to the bare minimum, which is why it's really popular with NASCAR pit crews. So basically, they use classic SMED techniques to get their changeover of like changing out tires or refueling cars, which normally take minutes. They get it down to a 12-second pit stop. So their secret is they follow a standardized, optimized process, which is what a SMED event is. So Allison, I'm going to hand it over to you to kind of break this down for us.
All right. Thanks, Abby. Thanks for the introductions. Okay, so let's get right into it. What is SMED? As Abby said, it's part of the lean methodology. It really aims to reduce waste in the setup and changeover process. And also, like Abby said, downtime costs money. So the key idea is to map out your process and move as much stuff from being done when the machine is down to before or after it's down. And if you can't do that, then another thing is really to just like reduce the timing of the steps that are being done when the machine is down anyways, if you can't actually extract or take things out of that process. So one key thing to understand before doing a SMED event is that each step of your changeover process is going to fall into one of two categories, internal or external. Internal activities are steps that are performed when the machine is off, when you're in changeover. And external activities are performed when the machine is running, hence no downtime. So the more external activities in your changeover process, the more time efficient it's going to be. And the objective of SMED is to reduce your internal activities, again, to the bare minimum. So we'll go over the 3 general steps of SMED before getting into questions and the example that we're actually going to do. So the 3 steps are extract, convert, and streamline. So first, when you go through the extract step, you'll be removing steps that could be done externally, but are currently being done internally within the changeover. So here you're going to want to document the steps, classify them as internal or external, extract the external steps and do them either before or after the changeover process. And typically this step alone can often lead to 50% reduction in setup times. The next step is convert. So here you're going to be taking steps that are done internally or could be done partially internally and convert them to external steps with some work. The key words here are steps that involve the words preparing or adjusting. And typically, some of these steps can be broken down and done, and some parts of them can be done before or after, but not all of the step. And the last step is going to be streamline. So in this step, you really try to shrink the time of the remaining internal activities that you couldn't convert to external. And this is the final step of SMED. The actions usually require a lot more engineering work to get you over the finish line of optimizing the new process, but it's worth it. So before we get going into the example, do we have any kind of initial stuff?
We do. The first question is, will you be getting a copy of these slides? Yes, everyone on the line will be getting a copy of this recording and the slides. We do realize that this content, like each of these slides has a ton of content on it. So we want to be mindful of that so you don't have to be taking notes right now. I don't know if anyone wants to win an Amazon gift card because no one's really asked another question besides that. So I've got some for you, Allison. Can you just briefly go over the difference again between extracting and converting?
Yes. So extracting is when you don't really have to do a lot of work to actually take a step from being an internal step and taking it out and doing it before or after the changeover. Converting means that you're going to have to do some work. So we'll get into some more examples specifically of what like converting actually looks like. But usually you can break out the step into different parts and do certain parts before or after.
Okay, because that's what I was going to ask next is, can you give an example of extracting?
Yeah. Well, actually, we'll get right into that in the next slide. Cool. Okay, so great. So before we go through, we're going to go through the 9-step SMED event process with an example. And keep this in mind that all of this example is kind of made up and the points don't matter. And what you do in your actual event can actually look a lot different than this. But the purpose of it is really just to show you how you can go through a SMED event from start to finish.
Ooh, Allison, I will stop you right there because we did have a question come in that I think is relevant. So what is the world-class die change time and a more average changeover time? So what are you striving for? What's the world-class and what's an average changeover time?
Yeah, so I mean, average changeover time definitely depends on your industry. A lot of folks are totally good with 4 hours. I think that's generally a long time, but we can try to get it down. And the world class is really getting it under less minutes. So getting it into that single minute range of time. So you want to try to get it under 10 minutes is goal. But yeah, depending on the industry, your changeovers definitely vary from like 30 minutes to 20 to 4 hours, 8 hours. It just depends on what kind of work you're doing.
Okay, great. We do have a lot more questions coming through, so thanks everybody for participating. But let's get into the example.
Yes. All right. So SMED event. So doing a SMED event is basically going to be like a week-long process. Your first step is going to be to try to assemble your team, typically comprised of about 5 to 7 employees from different disciplines across your company. And it's really good to have your team have horizontal and vertical diversity. Overall, it just helps bring in different perspectives from various departments and organizational levels to bring in the best ideas and collaboration. So this is kind of like our best practice team list. Basically, anybody from a facilitator role, somebody who has experience facilitating and can remain impartial, operators. I can't stress this enough. You want to have the people who are going to be doing the changeovers involved in the process. They know the process the best, and really they have the best opinions for how things can be improved. Supervisors, area managers, team leads, these people help with sustainability, engineers from different disciplines and maintenance to help build any tools or jigs or guards or anything that needs to really come out of that SMED event. Supply chain, they really act as the voice of the customer and can help get additional resources or supplies. And finance to act as like that financial whip, the person who's going to be like, no, we can't spend $100,000 on this or that. It doesn't make sense. So having somebody there to keep the project under financial control is pretty important. So yeah, this is a whole list of things that I've seen doing SMED events myself.
So Allison, do you need a person from every single one of these disciplines to have a successful SMED event?
Yeah, yes and no. I think definitely the first 5 are pretty key in ensuring that the SMED is going to be successful and sustain. Supply chain and finance, it depends on the type of detail that you're really looking to get into in your SMED event. You could probably forego that, but I've actually been a part of a SMED event where we didn't involve anybody from maintenance, and we needed a bunch of tools redone and guarding made. And after the event, it was really difficult to get their buy-in and get on their calendar to have them like help us make everything. So having them there during the week would have been really beneficial. So definitely the first 5 are pretty crucial.
So we did have a question that seems relevant for your next point about the planning for 4 to 5 days. So is the SMED event similar to a Kaizen event where production will be affected for those 4 to 5 days?
Yeah, it could be. So one of the things that we really recommend doing, and we'll get into this actually in the next steps as well, is your SMED event typically about 4 to 5 days. It's kind of like a Kaizen event. And it's pretty structured throughout the 4 to 5 days. And you will need either to watch a changeover during that time on a machine, or something that I see people do is actually take videos of changeovers beforehand and they watch it so they don't disturb production during the time of the event. But also there's a good way for Amper to help us in that data collection process as well. So we'll get into that.
Okay, we should probably move on.
Yeah. All right. All right, so step 2, train your team. Typically, before you hold your event or on the first day, you really want to train your team members on like the basics of SMED. So everything we've gone about in this video, and also I think this is a good point to say that we'll be passing out an ebook. It's really nice. It's about 28 pages, I think, of content that's going to sum up the training material nicely, and you can actually use this to train your team. It's important to level set everybody, as we're all biased to kind of assuming that everybody has the same knowledge base as us. And regardless of where you are with your understanding in SMED, it's good to go in, train the team, and level set and get everybody to that same page and ensure that that's happening. And one key step to include in that training is, again, the key points of SMED, which are what are internal and external activities. So we'll go on to the next step. Map out your current changeover process. So in the remaining slides, we're actually going to be going through an example together to show you how you can run through the process yourself. So a changeover is typically measured as the last good part of the previous run to the first good part of the next run. And in between those times, you really want to watch a changeover event with the team, document each step at a high level, and time it. And a lot of people, again, they either take a couple hours out of the first day of their SMED event to go watch a changeover, or they might take a video beforehand and watch it with the team throughout the process. Either way, whenever you do this, you're probably going to end up with a pretty small sample size. So you might want to do it a couple times. Or again, Amber can help you out in a pretty big way here. We'll get into that in the last section. But yeah, let's go through the steps and we'll talk about how this fake changeover goes from 2 hours down to mystery. We'll see where we can get it to. So the steps. First, power down and remove unused raw material. And then you see all the times on the right. So then the next is do your paperwork for your old job, get the new work order and the tooling, take out the old tooling and put the new tooling in, order new raw material and wait for it to come, put new raw material in, do your manual adjustments, program, final adjustments, and then your first piece inspection. So those are the steps that we're going to play with. And the machine goes down at the beginning right now and comes back up at the end, takes about 2 hours. Cool. So once you've mapped out your changeover with your team, you're going to want to analyze each step and determine if it's internal or external. And again, this is typically done on the first day. So here you want to really ask yourself, do I really need the machine to be off to do this step? If the answer is yes, flag it as internal. The machine needs to be off. If the answer is maybe yes or partially yes, flag that too, say like internal partial. And then if the answer is, well, like, no, I don't really need the machine to be off for this, put it as external. And we'll show you in the next step how you kind of move everything around.
I do think there's something we should clarify. At what point do you start recording the changeover time? For what's the cutoff?
Yes. Yeah. So changeover is your last good part of your previous run to your first good part of your next run.
Okay. If someone had that question, I want to clarify.
Cool. All right, so now we'll go through the extract phase. So this is usually started on the second day, like actually doing the extraction. And again, this is where you remove the steps that can be done externally, but are currently being done internally. Here are some common extraction activities. So getting parts, getting tools, materials, inspection, cleaning, quality checks. And again, a lot of the time manufacturers just go through this part of their SMED event, and you can reduce your changeover times typically like 30 to 50% just in this step alone. And so we'll go through on the next slide. Here's the example that we started with, and it shows what we flagged everything as. The green is the external. And on the next slide, you can see how we've reordered those steps, and we actually just took them out. We put them at either the front or the end of the changeover process. So now the machine actually goes down at step 4 instead of step 1. Yeah. And with this step alone, oh, you can go to the next slide. With this step alone, we've been able to take our changeover from 120 minutes to 70 minutes, a 42% reduction. Golf claps. So yeah, now we'll move on to convert. Okay, so the extraction step, again, usually takes about a day. You'll move on to convert in day 3. And the conversion step is more complex than extraction. Often it means breaking down steps into its different parts, some of which can be performed externally and others still need to be performed internally. And examples, again, include anything really that says like preparing, aligning, adjusting. All of these are convert steps. So advanced preparation is a good one. Using duplicate jigs, modularizing or modifying the equipment. And here you really want to ask yourself, is there a way to make this element or parts of this element external? And how do we do it? So we'll run through this. Here again, this is what the changeover looks like after extraction. And then here are 3 examples of converting, and I'm going to go through each of them. So for the first step, power down and remove unused material. So maybe there's a process where you have to walk over and get the bins, and you get the bins that you put your new raw material in, and the bins are like halfway across the factory. They're all stacked on top of each other, and they're heavy, and you need a forklift to separate them from and bring them over. And basically the entire, like the biggest chunk of that 20 minutes is done or can be done beforehand, before the machine is off, but not all of it, right? Like there's still going to be about 5 minutes of actually removing the unused material, but you separate that out and you convert that part of that step into an external activity. So by doing that, we save 15 minutes. The second step is taking out old tooling and putting new tooling in. So currently this takes about 15 minutes to do. And a lot of the time is just spent making sure that the tools are aligned and adjusted correctly. So by using duplicate tooling or jigs and presetting them to the new job before putting your tooling in, you could save 13 of those minutes. And lastly, the manual adjustment steps. So here you might be jogging the machine. You might be checking the parts and making sure that you're getting a good piece before putting in the program to actually go through and run it. So a lot of the time this can be saved by pre-adjusting or modularizing the tooling beforehand again. So by doing that, we've saved the additional 20 minutes in that step of the process. So again, this is all just a made up example, and yours is going to look different, but I just wanted to give you some ideas for how you can go through and actually take those steps, break them down, and convert parts of it into external. So here's what the steps look like now that we've gone through the converting step. The green ones are the ones that we've changed. And here is what the changeover looks like now. So we've been able to get our changeover down to 22 minutes, an 82% reduction. And another thing to note in this step is that these are going to take engineering work or some type of extra work, and you might need to purchase new tooling or carts or something during this step. So that's why it's kind of good to have a finance person involved, because you're able to do a cost benefit analysis to see if that time reduction is really worth getting a new set of tools that have presets on them, right? All right. So we will move on to step 7. So right here, this is the last step. This is typically done in day 4. It's the most complex step and can require some costly engineering, but it may be worth it. So, so here again, it's great to have engineers and maintenance on your team to help draft up intricate solutions that are going to shorten the times in the remaining internal steps. So yeah, here are the example Streamline steps: eliminating nuts and bolts with quick releases, completely eliminating adjustments with fixed settings and toolings, eliminating wait time. And this is also an area where Amper can help with. We have an and-on call tool that you would be able to actually make calls to eliminate the time you're waiting on certain things, like quality coming to the machine to do an inspection. And lastly, my favorite, doing operations in parallel. So a lot of the times it's I need to do this and then this and then this. Sometimes you can bring in an extra person and actually stack your operations on top of each other and save a pretty significant chunk of time. So again, here is where we are after the convert step. And here is where we'll be to do all of the streamlining. So there's 5 opportunities here. I'm going to go through each of them. So the first one is power down the machine and remove unused material. So we'll bring in a second person actually to help with that. And while the first person is finishing up, the other one will start to program the new machine for the new job in the last step. So this is by bringing in a second person, you actually reduce the time for both of these steps, and we can save 2 minutes on the first step and 3 minutes on the last step. Next, for taking out old tooling and putting new tooling in, we'll eliminate bolts and do some quick clamps. That'll bring it down to 1 minute. And third, when we put the new material in, we actually might find that there's a lot of walking or maneuvering that needs to occur. So we'll reorganize the workspace and reduce the time here to make it easier for the operator to load the new material. So doing this, we can cut out 2 extra minutes. And last, when we converted the manual adjustment step before in the convert step, we did some presetting. So now we can actually try to reduce almost all of the adjustments, maybe by using some shims or numerical settings on the toolings to save further time. And this can cut out an additional 3 minutes. All right, so this is what the steps look like now. We're at basically our entire changeover now is that 3-1-3-2-2 for all of the steps. And this is our final result. So we got it down to 11 minutes. Woohoo! And I think that, what?
9 minutes is world class. I thought we were running a world class operation in this example.
Yes, good points, Abby. Yeah, so basically we got it down to 11 minutes. You're always striving to get under 10. But in your first go, you might not do it. You might not even get it to 11. You might be at 20 or 30. And that's okay. You know, the whole point of lean is just to understand and really take root in the philosophy and just try again until you get it to the point that you want to be. So yeah, you're never really quite satisfied. And that's fine. We did a 91% reduction. It looks
Yeah,
great.
that's wild.
Okay. All right. So step 8 out of 9, and then I'll be done talking for a minute, and we'll do some questions. So step 8 out of 9, document your results and present. So now you have the time that you theoretically can do a setup in. You'll want to test it out. Maybe you'll do some cardboard engineering with maintenance. You'll try to you'll basically try to test out your theories and make sure that you can get it down to that set point that you want to get it down to. So on day 5 or day 4, if you have time, you'll want to prepare your documentation and present out to the greater team so that the new process can be adopted across all of the machines. So here's some common tools that I've seen folks use and I've used myself before and after bar charts of time spent in each step, standard work combination sheets, spaghetti diagrams, 5S checklists. Those are all kind of tools that you can use to be like, hey, it used to look like this and now it could look like this. And then also here's a standard report out agenda. So you can see basically when you're reporting out to the greater team, kind of how that flow could look like to really tell the story and get the buy-in after the fact for the results that you want.
And again, I know there's a lot of text, so you will be getting a copy of these slides. So
yes.
Next slide, Allison.
Yeah. All right. Last step 9 out of 9. So it's unlikely that you're going to basically get all the tasks done during the SMED event, and that's okay. You know, after the event, there's probably going to be some outstanding activities to finish up, such as all of the things listed here. So you'll really need a clear project owner and clear due dates. So you want to create like a project plan to follow through and keep the project going even after the SMED event is over. So in the beginning of the event, again, when you're choosing your team, make sure that they don't only like block out the time during the event to be available, but also some time after the event to close out the remaining steps. And as the project owner, you're really going to want to schedule your meetings for at least like once a week with the team to keep everybody accountable in their last steps. And then you want to make sure that you have a formal training session with your operators before rolling out the new process. So once you buy everything and you close everything out, make sure you train the operators. And then once you're going with the new process, you want to make sure that you have a solid auditing plan to make sure that you're saving the money that you really planned on. So the rule of thumb here is that actions become habits after about 30 days. So you want to audit every single day, all of the changeover times for 30 days after the event. And then after you kind of validated that it's working, you can go back to like once per month or once per week for your auditing plan to make sure people are following the new process. All right. Whew.
Whew, that was a long section. And first of all, thank you everyone for putting in these great questions. You guys are participating and we appreciate that. It's not like we're talking against a wall or to a wall rather. We had a great question from Nick. He is asking, so he's got a smaller company and taking 4 to 5 days to do a SMED event is like, you know, that's a big chunk of their company that are focusing on this. So do you have any thoughts on the shortest or fastest way you could do a SMED event or some version of a SMED event while still getting tangible results?
I love this question. Yeah. So I really think that if you are really struggling with getting like 4 to 5 days of people's times consecutively, a good way to do it is to break out each 3 of those steps, or 4, or really like mapping out the process, extracting, converting, and streamlining into maybe 1 day focus events over a span of like a month. So just try to get people together 1 day and map out the process, do internal, external, assign some like homework, if you will, and then get back together the next week. So you can make a longer term project out of it. It doesn't have to be like a total Kaizen focus event for 4 to 5 days. But you do have to make sure that people with that are still coming and being held accountable, and they're not kind of, like thinking about everything else in their work in the back of their mind while they're there.
I have a question on top of that. Sorry, everybody else who has a question. Could you just do, and like, instead, do you have to do all 3 steps? Could you just do extraction and reduce up to 50% of your setup time?
Oh yeah, you totally could. I really encourage people just to, as like a thought exercise, just like get together with some of your friends that you're working with and go through a changeover and see how much time you're spending in extraction before doing any work or doing anything about it. It might surprise you, and you might be happy with that small reduction. Well, not small, like 50% is not small, but you might be happy with just that. So yeah, it's just up to what you guys want to do. And again, everything should be done in these cycles of thinking and planning and doing, and then implementing and monitoring the results. And then maybe at that point you go back and you do convert. So yeah, you can definitely split it up.
Okay. And then we had an interesting question come from David, who's asking, and I hope I'm interpreting this correctly. So does a SMED event look at the overall number of changeovers you have and try to reduce them through better scheduling or different job orders, or is that outside the scope of a SMED event?
Wait. So they look at the overall number of changeovers and try to reduce the number of changeovers you're doing. No, actually. So it kind of goes against like lean philosophy overall. The whole idea with lean is that you want small batch sizes because you want to do quick changeovers, because you kind of want this like immediate feedback back to the customer that you're constantly like pumping out parts for them. So you really want to do more changeovers, honestly. Like with lean and lean philosophy, you want more changeovers, but you want them to be shorter so that you're not like crippling your process doing about like spending 80% of your time in changeovers, right? So the idea is that in order to be able to be high mix and kind of switch and meet customer demand and customer needs, you need smaller batches to do it. So you need to shrink your changeover times so that you can level out your processes accordingly. I hope that kind of answers it.
I hope so. David can let us know if we didn't answer that.
Because I mean, just think about it. If you're doing less changeovers, I mean, yeah, it does help. But it can actually, if you're doing less changeovers by stacking up similar jobs, you might be putting something that was placed, like an order that was placed earlier in the back end, and then your on-time delivery is just gonna start going down because you're not doing your orders in like FIFO. Okay. I hope that helped and didn't confuse people.
We don't get live feedback. That's the unfortunate part about this. So we have 2 more minutes probably before we have to go into the next section. Evan has a great question. So for setups that will never be reduced to 10 minutes or less, which can be unrealistic in a lot of cases, is there a benchmark for that, or is it based on just continuously improving and the historical data for that specific changeover?
Yeah, I mean, your improvement is what works for you, right? So if you should always be striving for 10 minutes or less, even if it's totally like not feasible. Generally, they say in a SMED event, though, you should be able to cut your changeover by at least 50%. So the theory is that if you have a changeover of an hour, and you do one SMED event and you get it down to a half hour. Okay, great. We're looking good. We're sustaining. Let's do another one. So you do another one and then you get that down to 15 minutes and then you try to sustain that for a little bit. And then you do another one, right? So you just repeat this cycle. Of trying to always aim at least a 50% reduction. And eventually you could get down to 10 minutes. But yeah, again, like your goal for your changeover totally depends on your industry.
Okay. And we'll have time for one more question in this section. And I don't know if you know the answer to this, Allison, but it's worth asking.
Yeah.
So for a facility with 12 plus presses in-house, and there's daily changeovers, okay? Do you see better success with a dedicated setup team for the entire facility, or with operators at each respective press doing their own changeovers?
Oh, so that's, yeah. So where I used to work, I don't know if we ever really fully figured that one out. So that's a tough one. It definitely goes into your cost benefit analysis. If you if you have a dedicated team, as long as they're actually able to reduce that downtime, then it might be worth it to bring one or two people in as like dedicated setup techs. But it's all about downtime reduction. So like if you add 5 people to your team and they're still doing like a setup in the same amount of time, it's like it doesn't really make sense to do it, because then that operator might just be sitting there not doing anything while the team is doing the setup. If you analyze each step and you find out that having a team and actually stacking, like a NASCAR pit crew, stacking operations on top of each other does reduce your time to like essentially the longest operation, it might be worth it. But it's a cost benefit analysis. If your setup is 1 hour and you get it down to 10 minutes, is that worth bringing in like 10 people as like a setup pit crew, you know?
Okay, so make sure we have enough time to get through the last section. We should get going. Thank you everyone for asking your questions. Continue to ask them. There will be one more final section and we'll announce the winners. So let's get into it.
Okay. All right, so how do you use Amper? Hello, all of our Amper customers and hopefully potential future Amper customers. Ways that you can use Amper to help you with your SMED events. So we all know, I mean, people are doing SMED events everywhere with or without data monitoring. You can do it without Amper, but obviously Amper helps you with automating certain processes. And it also provides a really nice tactical tool for making sure that you hit your setup goals. So we'll go over that. It's like the last slide, and it's my favorite. It's my favorite tool. So, all right. The first way that you can use Amper is to understand your cost of setup. And you can do this with the Downtime Labeling module. So before you put any time and effort into conducting a SMED event, you'll want to first understand if the setup and changeover is even your leading cause or one of your leading causes of like controllable downtime at your factory. So you're looking at our downtime labeling module right now. Basically, anytime you have a downtime event, you can label it and say, yo, I'm in setup. And you have eventually how many hours you're losing due to setup, and hours equal dollars. Here at Amper, we actually use an average rate of $40 per hour per machine. And you can correlate those hours lost directly to a cost, extrapolate it out over the year. And that should be enough fuel alone to justify and spark the flame on investing time in a SMED event. So the next way you can use Amper is by automating the mapping out the process step. And you can do this with the setup module. You can use our setup module to write out each step of the setup process. All of these steps can be custom for you at your factory, and you're actually able to see how much time you're spending in each step. So you can do this as an ongoing activity. And we have lots of customers who log each and every setup, each day, each step, and they actually use it to help with costing their product more appropriately, because they know how long each setup is actually truly taking for every part. So the other way you can do it is just do it a month before your SMED event. So do it to collect your data, talk to your operators, make sure they're on board, and start Paretoing out your true setup times in each step. So also it's really helpful because you increase your sample size. So if you're doing a SMED event and you're only going to do this on like 1 or 2 machines and 1 or 2 setups, something could have gone wrong in one step and it might skew like your results. Basically, you might think you're going to save a lot of money, but you won't. So next slide. Yes. This is what the setup bottlenecks actually can look like in the Amper app. So you can see here that we have quality sign off. It takes the longest, and the mechanical setup and programming. Yeah. So overall, you are able to see on average which step takes the longest so that you can help drive your 80-20 of where you want to focus in your SMED event.
So Allison, can you tell the customers online where they can actually access this data?
Yeah, so customers, you can access this in your Explorer if you have setup unlocked. So basically, we can't unlock setup for you unless we know what your steps are that you want. And I have customers that only have one step that just says like set up the machine. So if you have setup unlocked, go to your Explorer, you can find the setup module and you can actually see this Pareto. If you don't have setup unlocked, talk to your CSM, probably myself or Howard, and we can help walk you through the process of unlocking it and getting going with the setup module. All right, 3 more slides. So you go through your event. So all of those other things are kind of like precursors to your SMED. Now you've gone through your event and you can actually use Amper to help you justify and like validate purchases. So with the data, hypothetically, you can see that you'll be able to cut out like 5 minutes every setup with a setup cart. So you know how much each setup cart is going to cost you. You know you're going to save 5 minutes each setup. Maybe you do X setups a week. It's going to be this many hours a year that you can save. And at that point, it's just a simple like cost benefit analysis. You know what you could save versus what you'd spend in setup carts. Another thing that you can do is also like validating, again, getting like dedicated setup techs. We kind of talked about this. So is it worth it to get somebody to come in for certain parts of the process to save that time and stack those actions? And then you know how much time they're going to be there. Is it worth it for them to be there versus how much time you can save, basically? All right, next. Okay, so another way you can use Amper is to track your progress after the SMED event. So once your SMED team has documented your new changeover process, you can actually send those steps to us. We'll adjust the Amper setup module to reflect those changes, and then you can measure the difference in the setup times before and after the event. So maybe before it was taking this much time and now it's shrunk down to here, or maybe you're not shrunk down where you want to be, and then you can help, it'll help you like focus where you want to go to actually hold people accountable in doing the process correctly. And lastly, the tactical tool, my favorite. So you can use Amper as a great tool for staying on top of your changeovers in the moment. So you don't need to find out the next day. You don't need to find out 4 hours later that your setup is still in setup. You can set a goal in the system for your setup times. And then when your operator starts the setup, if they go over that goal by X minutes, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, whatever, you could be notified right away that the setup's going on too long. So a lot of customers actually use this to set up like a escalating alert system. So for example, if they go 5 minutes over the goal, maybe you notify some team leads. If you go 15 minutes, maybe the supervisors get a text. 30 minutes, maybe your operations manager gets notified. So the idea here is just to make sure that your margins on each job stay within the right limits, but before it's too late, basically. So I know I didn't leave us with a lot of time for Q&A.
Let's give everyone about 20 more seconds to ask their questions, and Joel will give you a couple of minutes to run everyone's name through his randomizer, and we'll announce the winners in a couple of minutes. So we did have a great question come in. Is the setup module an additional cost? No. You are an Amper customer, the setup module is a part of your plan. So contact your CSM if you want to turn that on. Mm-hmm. Let's see, we had a good one come in at the beginning that I wanted to ask. So Chris at MGM, he says, given a certain fixed number of operators or machinists, do you think you can achieve more machining hours by switching one machinist to a setup tech role and taking the machine offline? It's kind of what you talked about with validating this kind of stuff with Amper.
I think I'm a visual person, y'all. Sorry.
Yeah, read it.
Who asked this?
It looks like Howie asked it, but it came from Chris.
Oh gosh, I'm sorry. Oh, here we go. Given a fixed number of operators and machinists, do you think that we can achieve more machining hours by switching one machinist to a setup tech role? Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, it depends on what the data is telling you. Certain cases it might not, certain cases it might. I've seen a lot of the times that, yeah, like switching people over and doing setup techs for, or being a setup tech for a certain amount of time of the day, actually it can help save money. But yeah, it would be an analysis that you'd have to check out.
Um, okay, we've got another one. Sorry, I want to make sure we get to at least some of these. So Amper's summary organizes information based on machines. Is there a way through Amper to break it down by setup times based on part number rather than machine?
Oh yeah, yeah. So we actually have different setup types in our system. So you can look at setups for lathes versus a setup for a mill versus, I don't know, whatever machines you have. You can look at setup times based off of that. You can look at it by operator if you have operators logging in. You can look at it by part number, and yeah, and machine. You can look at it by shift. So yeah, basically any kind of breakdown you want. And also the Amper tool has a really nice like breakdown. So you can say on this machine, I ran within the last month, I ran all of these different parts and then I ran this part on all of these different days. And it consistently is a longer setup, you know? So we have kind of like a 5Y tool broken down or baked into the Amper app as well. But a good question to ask your CSM and they can demo that for you.
Great. Joel, do you mind unmuting yourself and giving us an update on the winners? Are you ready to announce?
I am ready, Abby. I'll drop it in the chat as well. Big congratulations to Evan, Simon, and Chad. You guys are our winners for the raffle. Would just ask if you could confirm your best email address in the chat, then we can make sure to get that out to you.
Awesome. And there is only one Evan, Simon, and Chad, right? So there's not going to be multiple Chads. Who won, Joel?
Yeah, I dropped your full names in the chat.
Awesome.
So you guys should be good to go.
Great. Everyone else, I'm sorry we did not get to answer all these questions. We will try to answer them offline. We do just have a couple of wrap up things here. Allison, do you want to summarize for everyone?
Yeah. So today, I mean, we talked about what SMED is and the history of it. We went over an example for how you could host a SMED event. And then lastly, we went into how Amper specifically does a really good job with helping you through your SMED event. So yeah, check your inbox for a copy of the recording, the ebook, and the slides, and should be good. Some good stuff.
Yeah, and if anyone is interested in getting a demo of Amper or accessing any of our other lean resources, please check out our website. And there is a survey at the end. If you could all take 2 seconds to fill that out, it does help us make better content for you guys. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Huge thank you to Allison, who gave us a great presentation, and Joel for helping us on the back end there.
All right.
Great day.
Yeah.